morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Compassionate leadership. Let's take the next hour and let's do a bunch of learning. Hopefully, we have a little bit of time left towards the end to take questions from everybody. Glad you're here for compassionate leadership. Obviously, over the last period of time, during COVID, etc., we've had a bit of a change in the way leadership is perceived, and I think it's really important for us as a group to make sure that we understand what that is as HR professionals, as CEOs, as leaders of our organization. You know, when we start to study compassionate leadership and we think back 30 years ago and we say, you know, what would it have looked like 30 years ago when we talk about compassion and leadership put together? I think that, you know, 30 years ago, we would have said leadership is about seeing the big picture and it's about being a role model and, you know, being the toughest one and getting people through all of those sorts of things. But I think in today's world, when we talk about compassion and leadership put together, it's not about being the superhuman leader. It's about being the human leader. So if you drop the word super from leadership, I think it's sort of where we position ourselves going forward. I think the leader today sees, hears, and feels more, and even predicts better because of that. And so I think it's really important. Sarah, if you can just make sure that anytime a new person comes in, they get muted, that would be fantastic. That's wonderful, especially for the sound engineers here that are going crazy at the fact that it's like, no, it's coming through. So we think about that, but we will have compassion for those who come in with noise, gang, because we know their background, they're working with the noise coming through. So when we think about, and obviously the Dalai Lama is a huge example of compassion, Mother Teresa, huge examples of compassion that are out there in the world. And I think it's important for us to really take track of that. If you think of in your own world, who's been the most compassionate leader you've met? Who's been the leader that's helped you understand compassion? And it might not be a workplace leader that helped you understanding compassion. It might be someone more in their private space that helped you understand compassion. So when we look at what is an ideal leader and start thinking of what an ideal leader looks like, you know, I mentioned, you know, home life. I think our moms are seen as superhuman in many ways and that sort of thing, and they're a great leader from that example. But we're not just talking about that from a private standpoint. We're really taking a look at this from a business standpoint. And if we take a look at the traits of that new ideal leader and we start to think of, you know, other than maybe the military, I guess, where the leaders are more human and not superhuman, and maybe as engagement experts, we have an opinion on the military side of it too. But today we're going to stay with the whole business side of it. And even though I've mentioned your mom, it's still going to stay on the business side of this. That when anyone compares what someone wants out of a job, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID, I don't think it takes a genius to work out that there are certain things that are innate. Okay, there's certain things that everybody wants in their role or in their work. And no matter what background they come from, no matter what country they're in, and no matter what company they work for, it's important for us to understand these three major points of what someone is looking for. Obviously, they work for a financial wellness. You know, that is an aspect of it that they're looking for. Growth is definitely a part of it. You know, when someone senses the fact that there's no room for growth for me in that organization, you know, they start looking elsewhere. If we want a high performance team, we want engaged people grow, engaged people help the company grow. It's no more complex than that. And looking at compassionate leadership today is really something where we've seen such a massive shift, I guess. And some of the studies that we can look at of how we've gone from that me to we sort of thing. And when we look at the future of work trends in 2022, the Korn Ferry survey, it summarized it as follows. Let me just read this directly from: power has shifted from organizations to people, from profit to mutual prosperity, from me to we. You know, At Engage and Grow, we've always been in the journey from me to us. It's always been the thing that we do. And, you know, unfortunately, most companies try and do this through a technology base or through something that is not really about compassion and about human to human connection. So when we align the business world with our philosophy, or it's interesting to watch how our philosophy stood the test of time, and the pandemic has really aligned a lot of the business world with our philosophies at Engage and Grow as to how that worked. You know, when you look at employees' health, not just physical health, but mental health, it's definitely been something that we've championed for a long time. As the chairman here at Engage and Grow, I think it's one of the biggest key factors that I keep pushing through to my team is that, you know, when we look at the mental health of people, and I think if we just go back to, again, Corn Ferry, employee health and well-being were important long before COVID-19, but it's now front and center of every organization's plans. Companies face the economic burden of sickness and stress, both medical expenses and lost productivity. And remote working has given employees a greater understanding and concern for their own well-being. So when you think about it, they want companies to act more human. They want the leaders in their organization to have more humane ways of dealing with things and understand. When you look at balancing the family, the health, the life aspects of business today, it can't be better said than this line in the Corn Ferry Service. To have a greater purpose that speaks to connection and support, meet their expectations for flexible working, better healthcare, most importantly, help them keep their personal energy they need to survive and thrive when times get tough. Because the flip side of vitality is burnout. And we saw that so much over the last couple of years. It's not just the human thing to do, it's the right thing to do for people and organizations. From 2022 onwards, lip service won't cut it in compassionate leadership. Lip service won't cut it with employee engagement. Technology won't cut it with employee engagement. When we sit down and we start thinking of, oh, I'm going to use a technology solution to engage humans, that doesn't make any sense to us here at Engage and Grow. What we need to engage humans is humans. So let's think about these 4 key findings about leaders and where we're moving to, or really where we should have been, I guess, is probably the better point to it. Egon Zender's work with CEOs has been revolutionary. And when we start to think about the shaping of the business world and the CEO's role within that, there are some very important aspects of what's happened. You are obviously the center of a more, the world is getting louder. Let's just put it that way. It's more diverse, there's more diverging voices. And that's why next month, by the way, my webinar will be on diversity and inclusion. So if you want to bookmark my webinars next month, diversity and inclusion will be a part of it. So everything starts with the CEO, obviously. I know as HR professionals, we definitely think it starts with us, but I know that unless the CEO takes that step, it's going to not happen. So they must recognize themselves to change the world. They must, 80% of CEOs strongly agree with, in Egon's work, strongly agree they need to transform themselves as well as their organization. But, you know, change is hard. Changing yourself is difficult. Changing your organization is even more difficult. You know, people and peers admit that they struggle to connect with people and lift the, I guess, collective ambition of the organization is what we're looking to do. This level of compassion that we're seeing needed is going to move us in that direction. CEOs today do see their goal as prosperity for the many, not just for the one not just for the organization. But that being said, it's not something that they're enacting or not something they're achieving on a daily basis. Although survey respondents agree social and environmental contributions are important, and I guess they should be the forefront of progress, it's still not the main priority. And this is where I think we're going to see a lot of movement and have to make that movement, and why the Engage and Grow programs, and specifically I think our 12-week Red Belt program, when we work with businesses and get this internal movement of of engagement, where the engagement comes from people to other people. I think that is an important aspect of what we're looking for. Every single time, well, not every single time, I guess it's the traditional financial metrics seem to remain dominant decision drivers for most CEOs. And in a compassionate leadership world, we need to start adding metrics that are not just about financial aspects. We need to start adding metrics that move us in that direction. So I think CEOs are expanding their capacity to be adaptive, relational, and self-aware. They're definitely moving to see a change in leadership style, specifically in the self-reflection. We see more leaders with coaches today, more CEOs, more HR managers with coaches today than we ever have done before. There's more inclusion, I think, than we've ever seen before in diverse points of view, and seeking, that frequent, honest feedback from team members, from mentors, consultants, and even other CEOs out there in the marketplace. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. But I think there's some things we need to learn about compassionate leadership that will move us there a lot faster and get us far greater results. I think philosophically, when we see better engagement, we see better growth. There's no two ways about that. More engagement, more growth. And that's really what we're looking for. So if we want to start understanding compassionate leadership, and by the way, I will be putting up the link to the ebook on this subject for you. So if any of you are readers and want more detail, I'll be putting the link up in a moment to the ebook for the subject, so you can download that. And if you do have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat window. And between Ishik and Sarah, I'm sure they'll get the questions, the right questions up to me to answer any of those questions for you. So attributes like emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and mindfulness, this holistic leadership approach and compassionate leadership recognizes every team member as not only an important individual in the organization, but also an essential thread to really, I guess, the fabric of the entire organization, the fabric of the team. And so it's that human aspect we're looking for. And a compassionate leader strives to enhance the happiness, the well-being of their people. And I think that as a group, we can definitely think about that. If you were to think about it, maybe type it in for me, who is the most compassionate leader you've met, whether they're famous or not? Just type it into the chat window for me. Who is the most compassionate leader you've met? Which, by the way, I didn't get to ask anyone. What cities and towns are you in? I know that my team probably knows that, but I haven't seen that yet. So if you get a chance to type in what city, what town you are in, I know we've got a bunch of team members from Europe. So it's great to see Portugal. We got over in Brazil, Madrid, New Zealand. Fantastic. Good to be there. Istanbul, Guyana, Morocco. Jang, we go across the world. We're doing a good job. A lot of people from Guyana today. Good. Louisville, Kentucky, Trinidad, Tobago. Fantastic. Who is the most compassionate person or leader that you've met? Ireland in the house, Mexico in the house. Good to see. We're crossing the world. And the reason I ask you to think about that person is, how did they make you feel? How did that compassionate leader make you feel as a person? How included did you feel as a person into the organization? How human did they treat you? And did you notice that you were the priority for them? How was it that you were that? It's not focused on the short term. The compassionate leadership isn't about instant gratification, but rather what's best for the individual, the team, the organization. Consider those factors maybe. And the impact in the situation at hand, more for the longer term than just the shorter term. So let's take a look then at what are some compassionate behaviors that we have out there, and what are some of the things that we as leaders can do for that. So attending, helping, understanding, empathizing, not in any specific order, gang. These are not like, there's not one that's a priority over the other three. It's really all four of them are a priority for us. I'm not seeing anyone type in who was their most compassionate leader. I would expect some of you, your most compassionate leader would be mother. That might be the one that you put in there. Mom was the most compassionate leader. But when I think back to as a young man, one of the most compassionate leaders I met was actually the leader of my Boy Scout troop. I think I was 14 or 15 years old, and Ivan was one of the most compassionate leaders. He made every person in the organization, in the Scout troop, feel like they were identified, seen. They felt like they were important. And that's going back 35 years, when a time of compassionate leadership wasn't really the way things were meant to be. So let's jump at these 4 different compassionate behaviors. Attending, it's about being present, listening with a level of intent, listening with fascination, I guess, being in attention to people, so that you're not shaking someone's hand and looking past them at the next person that you have to meet. It's really devoting yourself to that person in the moment. Understanding is very high on the list, and that deepness of understanding is, if you can listen with fascination, you can also listen to understand and listen deeply to what it is that a person is trying to express to you and how they're expressing that. Thinking about understanding how they face their challenges at work and how they balance their challenges between work and home is definitely part of being a great compassionate leader. And as CEOs, we need to move more and more to this. We have to embrace it more and more if we want high levels of engagement and therefore high levels of growth. Empathy. Empathy has always been high on the list, and I think as compassionate leaders, one of the things that we need to look at is how do we feel there? And we don't have to go into collusion with them. Empathy is not collusion. Empathy is not sympathy. Empathy is different to that, but we'll get to more of that in just a moment. But, feeling their strains and anxieties and frustrations, actually understanding those and taking it and working with those, and almost gives the motivation to serve those we lead type thing is really what we're looking at in the empathizing side of it. And finally, helping. If you can support and give them the resources to help them deliver high quality service and high quality ability to provide, and I guess removal of obstacles is a big part of that in helping your people achieve the results. But so many times when we think about leadership, and especially compassionate leadership, we have to debate the fact of performance and compassion. Now, this one, if I'm sitting in front of a group of CEOs asking them a question, well, which one comes first, performance or compassion? Does performance come first and then your compassion, or does compassion come first and then your performance? And if you're thinking about your kids, you know which way it would actually work. But if you're thinking about this in a work environment, employees need their managers, need their leaders to show compassion, to show that they care. Executives expect their managers and their teams to deliver results. Middle managers are often the one feeling that tension the most of, perform and be compassionate. You've got your team and you've got the bosses and you've got all of that stuff. Compassion sort of coming up from the ground and performance coming down, and that level of debate is really something that we looked at. I know in HBR there was a great article that said to these dual set of solutions, focus on 2 sets of actions. First, work to increase the organization's compassion capacity. Work to increase the organization's compassion capacity. That is, help and equip both senior executives and employees to shoulder more of the burden in delivering compassion so that it doesn't fall entirely on you as the CEO. Second, work with both executives and employees to lower their perceived pressure of performance demand. Now, that's an interesting challenge in and of itself. And when you say to someone, okay, I want you to decrease the performance demand and increase the compassion, I know that there's a challenge. And I know even for me as a CEO, some days it's like, but which one, you have that internal fight. I know I have that internal fight as a CEO to demand results, but also to show compassion and show that I understand where my people are coming from. As executives change that compassion score and their compassion capacity, it changes the performance dialogue. It changes the way performance is discussed. And it's possible for middle managers to reduce the pressure of blind performance targets by really clearly communicating the situation with upper management. So compassionate leadership is a two-way street in many cases. And you have to communicate it first and then move from there. I think that telling it as first. The second method to enable leaders to personally see that and hear the compassion needs of their employees, to show them. Telling them is one thing, showing them is another. Recognize there's no substitute for first-hand experience. And we found that leaders that are better able to empathize if they personally see and hear about employees' needs for compassion. So the more a CEO gets in touch with that frontline team, the more that obviously it can be. How can you challenge the performance when you need to be compassionate? Well, that's the debate, Samir, that we're really having here. Does compassion come before the challenge for performance? The challenge has to come before the performance. The compassion has to come from, because unless we actually see that person or that team or that group of people as human beings, how can we then ask them to perform better? How can you ask someone that is in a stressed out situation to perform better until you understand what is stressing them and maybe remove some of those obstacles and change the way that business works for them? So if we think of it, the hardest part of all of this is really sitting back and saying, all right, what do we, meaning you and me as CEOs or as high-level executives, how do we actually see this stuff? Because, when seeing the invisible and noticing what's going on with your team members, I mean, not even their therapist can often see exactly what's going on with people. So for us as leaders to be aware of the energies in the workplace, good management, good leadership rely on their ability to sense energies, right? We definitely have that. It's your gut feel, your intuition, whichever methodology or whatever terminology you want to use to do that. But don't try to see the invisible or see everything. It's just not going to happen. The invisible enemies are going to be there, and employees who don't even recognize what's going on in themselves sometimes. I think after COVID, we saw that people didn't even realize that loneliness was a thing. When we see people wanting to come back to an office, wanting to come back, but then when they come back to the office, wanting more of a cubicle space because they still do want some of that privacy that they had at home type thing. So, there is all of those different aspects for it. Now, when we take a look at employees, obviously they don't advertise their loneliness. That's not a thing. The joining in groups, joining all of these things. And this is what I think it's so important, the work we do at Engage and Grow of coming into organizations and bringing people together on a weekly basis, having them complete tasks that increase the engagement and allow them to start seeing what's going on. And I still, one of my favorite ever case studies is where we met two gentlemen that were basically head to head at loggerheads. Their fight in the executive team of an organization held that organization back, and clearly did so. And yet there was never one side ever giving in. And it wasn't until they were going through the program and both realized certain commonalities. And one of the commonalities was a family member with cancer. And when the two of them both realized what they were going through and how there was a common factor, how it started to open the relationship up. And, that loneliness at work is an entirely subjective internal belief. Few people truly know. People, the employees think no one really knows me, no one understands me, they wouldn't support me even if I did ask for help type thing. And that feeling is something that we need to remove. And so by bringing people together and helping them understand each other on a higher level or at a deeper level, I think that we get through that. But it can't just be done by intuition. You actually have to have some sort of systemic program that allows you to get into your team members and allows your team members to get together with each other. And that support environment of I guess, a psychological safety. And that's what I guess one of the greatest things about our programs is we bring people together in a secure space where they're open and they're willing to be vulnerable. We can catch the insecurities that are going on in that marketplace. So if psychological safety doesn't exist in an organization, and there's a perception of, well, do the employees really have opportunities for growth, to ask questions, to express their concerns, admit their mistakes, and find a way to fix them, and freely present their ideas, that sort of thing. If empathy channels are open, and the more open your empathy channels, obviously the more people will speak up. Now, sometimes to get an organization to shift, you have to start with just a few people in the organization shifting. We all know that in a study of change, that a few champions leading the way will change things quite dramatically. You might not be able to, as CEO, empathize fully with everybody, but maybe the team can empathize with each other. Maybe by building an organization where this happens more regularly, you can move it. So I think it's ultimately, let me just read this quote. This is a quote from a particular employee, and they think we've been sleeping at home. Since we started working from home, they're freaking out. We do not sleep. We're always in meetings. Calm down. We only work remotely. Then a message from an employee who had switched to remote work and expresses their feelings. However, flexible working is likely to be permanent as we move forward. And you have to convince yourself that no one is sleeping and everyone is at work. The new generation of employees has already made their stance clear on flexibility. And given the workforce that we're looking to recruit, and I know in my businesses, the more people we're looking to recruit, the more flexible we've got to be in virtualness of the organization. And so keep these things in mind as you move forward on all of these different aspects. So if we then start to address the fact, and I want to just do a simple activity. In fact, let me jump off screen for a second. A simple activity. Here's the activity. I'm holding up in front of you. Let me put it so the screen keeps it there. I'm holding my phone up in front of you, right? Now, as I keep talking to you with this phone in front of me, what percentage of your attention do you believe I'm giving you? Do you believe I'm giving you 100% of my attention when I'm holding my phone out in front of me? When my phone is just sitting on the desk in front of me, do you believe I'm giving, even if it's turned upside down, do you still perceive I'm giving you 100% of my attention? This technology world we live in is starting to remove the levels of compassion, starting to remove the levels of connectivity and the levels of the way we are doing things with people. Actually, Sarah, could one of you please put up the link to the ebook for me? I want, if you can all go to the chat room and just grab that ebook. I think that'll be important. What I'd like you to do with the ebook is share that with all of the team in your organization. Or we can get you a recording of this and you can share this with all of the people in your organization. But that ebook is a great way for you to just send it out to everybody on your team and get them to be able to understand what it is that we're talking about, so that you don't come across as crazy after listening to this new compassionate leadership webinar. Everyone says, what have you been reading, or what have you been studying? Well, now you can give them something that you have been reading and you have been studying. So if you do want to study more of the things we do, obviously Engage and Grow is available to you. So whoever sent you on this course, please make sure that you get back with them and have a chat with them about it. When you build solid projects with meaningful work and meaningful communication ties within it, it's often been said that the millennial generation is now really more of the Y generation, WHY, not the letter Y, but the Y. Why are we doing things? And it's that meaningfulness that we have to take into account. Some people work beyond working hours. They have responsibilities, even needs. They go home, they take their work home with them, they take their laptop home with them, they're thinking about work all the time. And sometimes meetings may not fit the agenda you predict. And so nevertheless, you have to look at the results, analyze the impact on the big picture, trust, and show that you trust people are doing a great job. Because if you show distrust to the people, especially those that you've allowed to work from home, it changes the relationship with that. So let's go back to, I mentioned the word earlier of empathy, right? And compassion, if we really want to take compassion to its nth degree, we're not looking at this from a perspective of um, understanding and support at a low level. We're looking at this at the highest of high levels. Showing pity for someone is the opposite of what we want to achieve in this group. Sympathy, yeah, you can feel for someone, but sympathy often leads to collusion, where we just go into allowing them to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. Empathy, on the other hand, is where I feel it with you. I am there with you. I'm part of this whole thing. Compassion is where we move to that level called I'm here to help. You as a CEO allow your executives and allow your team to feel like your role is I am here to help. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm not here to push you. I'm not here to cajole you. I'm here to help. How can I help you is probably the biggest mantra that a CEO needs to ask. I was on a podcast just yesterday and the gentleman said, Brad, what's one question I should have asked you, but I didn't? And I told him very simple, how can I help you? Because ultimately, how can I help you is the question or the way. Now, you can change the languaging on that. You can switch it up to the way you feel more confident in it. But ultimately, as a compassionate leader, we need to be here to help. And your active intention to help comes across in your questions. Your active intention to help comes across in how you put your energy and effort into things. Now, I'm going to jump on a debate here that can often be leading to, challenging debates, all right? Are women more compassionate than men? And we look at some of the studies, and of course, IBM did their study. Now, what were their exact words? IBM found in their study conducted around women in leadership, there are a few key reasons disparities like these occur. See, women are more empathic. Women are better communicators on average. Now, I'm not putting any men out of the equation here. Companies with higher degree of diversity tend to outgrow those with lower diversity packages. Why? Diversity experiences and viewpoints play a significant role in fostering innovation, since varied perspectives lead to better decision making, I guess. Do women's soft skills make them more compassionate? Well, IBM study said organizations want to change, but most are moving too slow. The disparities between where they want to be and where they are not. If women handle crisis better and lead more effectively, then they're seen as more compassionate. Times have changed, but approaches haven't. Most organizations pursue incremental change, but leaders aim for breakthroughs. A compassionate leader is one looking for breakthroughs, but not breakthroughs in the traditional sense of, let's get a breakthrough in performance by pushing people harder. Let's get a breakthrough in performance by doing A, B, or C. No, the compassionate leader is here to help. The compassionate leader is one that steps forward, and that's where we definitely need a lot more of those female traits. I won't say we need more women in an organization. I won't be one or the other. I'll say we need more of those traits. The compassion, the empathy, all of these things need to be there. That ability to communicate better needs to be a part of every organization that is doing this. So the new superpower. Well, from a compassionate leader's standpoint, the new superpower is kindness. The new superpower is that understanding of the human being in your organization. To know, we go back to the old statements of things like know, like, and trust. Not just for customers, but for team members. Do your team members know, like, and trust you as a CEO? Do they know your background? Do they know where you come from? Do they understand you? Do you know, like, and trust your executives that work with and for you? Definitely. See, one of the reasons we need more female leaders in this new era of leadership as we're entering is also a new and powerful form of currency. Kindness is a currency in this day and age. I guess it's a currency you can trade for loyalty, for trust, for high performance. That level of kindness, when an employee comes to you and says, listen, I haven't got a PTO request in, I don't have any time off booked in for tomorrow, but My mom just needs someone to pick her up tomorrow and take her to a doctor's appointment. The flexibility and the compassionate leader will find a way to make that work. That level of compassion, that level of kindness is the superpower that we're moving towards, and it is getting us the level of results that we want. And by the way, Sarah and Ishik, if you guys do, if there are any important questions that you want me to answer, just come off mute and read them to me. That would be great. I'm trying to get through everything in the 1 hour that I have. I'm trying to get through it in 50 minutes so that I do have time for questions. But if there are any really important ones that are popping up, please dive right in and take a look at that. So when we think about employee engagement, okay, and again, I'm a firm believer that you cannot generate massive employee engagement with a technological solution. If you want humans to become more engaged, then you need humans to engage humans. Okay, so that to me is important. So when we look at compassion, compassion improves employee well-being, and therefore their level of performance goes up. If people are more engaged, they work harder with and for each other. If people are more engaged with themselves, with their team, with the organization, then obviously there is organizational growth coming through with that. So now, there will be times when your compassion levels will be tested, okay? Let me relate this back to being a parent, okay? Because sometimes parenting is one of the greatest places to see how your level of compassionate leadership shows up on a day-to-day basis. Your kid breaks something, compassionate leadership or not? I had to with a friend of mine just the other day, and I'm just going to tilt my screen a little bit so I can grab a seat here for a minute as I tell this story. I was with my friend the other day, and his son made a mistake in front of us. He's an 11-year-old son. And my friend went straight into non-compassionate leadership, let's just put it that way. And I had to talk to him. I said, buddy, let me just ask you a question. Has your son ever faced this environment before or this situation before? He said, no. I said, well, how would he know how to make a decision that's the right decision in this environment? Are you in a moment where you're in a learning environment, where you're in a teaching environment with your son, or you are in a moment where it's a trouble environment? Should you be teaching him something right now and helping him learn how his mistake was a mistake? Or should you be in a place called, chastise him and yell at him and tell? And so I see this in workplaces all too often where it's not a compassionate leadership scenario. It's not treated as a teaching scenario. Compassion can heal mistakes. Remember, when someone makes a mistake, they have a high level of emotion, right? They made the mistake. They're feeling guilty. They're feeling all of these emotions running through them. To try and lecture them at a time of high emotion breeds low logic. So there's no use being doing anything other than compassion to bring them out of that high emotion and bring them back to a state of performance. Now, stress is another one that's it's always going to be there, and we need some stress in our business and our work life. You can't just have no stress. You've got to have some level of stress. Otherwise, there's no growth. The tree with the wind grows stronger roots because it's got the pressure against it type thing. But, research has always shown that stress exacerbates fear and anxiety, and it also suppresses confidence. It suppresses innovation. So what we need to do as compassionate leaders is we need to make sure people feel safe. If people feel safe and their stress levels go down, this is such an important relationship. Their innovation goes up, their performance goes up. So we've got to make sure that we have help people perform at that level. So, all right, let's go through the checklist. Being a compassionate leader, self-awareness. Practice self-awareness and self-compassion. When you're tough on yourself, you're going to be tough on everybody around you. There's no two ways about it. And if you're tough on everyone around you, you're going to be tough on yourself. So that, my friends, is something that we need to take a look at. By the way, I want to stress something. You can learn to be compassionate. Okay, you can learn anything. If you're not a compassionate leader right now, that doesn't mean you can't be in the future. And if you really want to learn your level of compassion, please get back with your Engage and Grow coach. Have them give you the Compassionate Leader Survey. Okay, I'm not going to put the link up here. You need to get with your coach and actually get them to give you the Compassionate Leader Survey, because I'll need some information to put you in there and make sure that you go through that. But you can learn compassion. If you go through the survey and find that your compassion levels are low, then it's a study item. Keep doing that. The second one on here, put yourself in others' shoes. You know, the old walk a mile in my shoes has never been more prevalent than it is in compassionate leadership. Think of yourself more of that conductor of the orchestra. You know, one of the greatest CEOs that America has seen, Alan Mulally, when they wrote the story of Alan Mulally, one of the greatest things he said is, you know, my job is not to say anything. My job, he always saw himself as bringing it out of all of the people around him. No wonder he was CEO of the year a couple of times, once at Boeing and once at Ford. So you think about that sort of stuff. Make sure, and if your people feel personally accountable for the work they do, they feel accountable, not just responsible for it, but they're held accountable for the level and the quality and the caliber of the work. You've got to make sure people do feel that way about their work. They feel accountable for it. And the more feedback you can give, obviously constructive, valuable, positive feedback, but also address the elephants in the room. It's not compassion to just deny the negatives with a person. It's not compassion to just say, oh, look, they messed up, let's just let it go. No, that's not compassionate leadership. That's kind of dumb leadership. You've got to address the elephants in the room, most definitely. So, more compassion can be learned. So, I just mentioned this, and I think I'll leave it speak for itself. I've never been charged with being a soft leader. Let me put it that way. I've never been told that my leadership style is one of being, shall we say, wimpy. You know, never been challenged with that. But that being said, if one of my team is in a scenario where they need assistance, it's the first thing. You know, I've learned through having kids to be a far more compassionate leader. I know whenever I hear anything dropped, it's not, what was that? That's my first statement when anything is ever dropped is, are you okay? You know, and literally I'm here in my TV studio at my office. It happened not more than 2 hours ago, or not actually at the start of this webinar. Joey, my technical guy, he dropped something. I'm like, are you okay? And it's learning that compassion. Now, I didn't always say, are you okay? Okay, I wasn't always that way. I've had to learn and grow just as much as anybody else. And I won't say as a leader I'm perfect in this stuff, but I do focus on the how can I help? I do focus on the compassion more and more and more. And I believe that the ultimate strength of a leader is the ability to be vulnerable. The ultimate strength of a leader is that vulnerability. I still remember when we hit the marches here in America when Black Lives Matters and everything came to the forefront. And I remember getting on social media with my team saying, I don't know how to teach my kids about this stuff. And I was very tearful about that because I was honest. I didn't really understand how can I, as a leader of my family, educate my kids as to what's going on? How can I do that sort of thing? And so sometimes the biggest thing we can do as a leader is to show our own vulnerability, and that's the ultimate in strength. The ultimate in strength is vulnerability, and that's why I know that only the most courageous CEOs, only the most courageous HR managers and leaders take on what we do at Engage and Grow. You must be brave to confront yourself and be compassionate. You must be brave, but to be at the forefront of leadership, to be where everybody is going and needs to be, you need to be at that level of it. So, yeah, I can't say it more clearly than that. If we as a team, meaning you, me, and every CEO on the planet, you, me, and every HR manager on the planet, if we as a team learn to nurture and develop our people in a way that compassionate leaders must, if we show up, if we attend, if we listen with depth, and we get to know the humans and where they're going, what they're doing. In our annual reviews, in our quarterly reviews, if we stop making it about just performance and we start making it about people and where are they at and what's going on with them. In your weekly meetings with your team, what are you doing and what are the discussions happening? Do you get straight into work, or do you actually talk about life? Do you ask people things? Now, one of the key metrics for me in my organization is watching Facebook and watching LinkedIn and seeing how many of my team send a happy birthday message out to another member of my team. If I see one of my team and it's their birthday, and I'm one of the absolute, it is a thing that is just, I think everyone should be congratulated and acknowledged on their birthday. In fact, my team think it's weird that in our organization, you are expected to take the day off on your birthday. It is expected that you'll have a PTO on your birthday. And people are like, that's just weird. Why would you do that? I want to come to work. I want the cake, because yes, we buy cake for their birthday and everyone sings and celebrates and embarrasses the heck out of them. Of course, it's very compassionate, sort of, it's humans. We're fun. We enjoy ourselves. But those sorts of things are where human beings will perform better. Humans perform better when they feel known, when they feel heard, when they feel like they're part of something great. I still go back to every day whenever I'm considering how people perform in my companies. I still go back to every day something my dad taught me when I was about 20. And I went to my dad, as a 20-year-old businessman, I complained to him and said, Dad, you know what? I just can't get good people. And of course, my dad looked me fair and square in the eye as the very blunt man he was, ran big companies, was an accountant by training. And Dad just looked me directly in the eye and said, Brad, you get the people you deserve. You're an average manager running an average company, doing average things. The highest caliber of person that would want to work for you is average. And it was disheartening, obviously. My dad, as you can imagine, not a compassionate leader. No, Ray Sugars was not in the compassionate leader category. But, I'm talking 30 odd years ago, when leadership was different. As it says, let me just put it to you very simply. Not robots. You got to have their back. You got to be there. This is a team. I want you to think, on a sporting team, do they have each other's back? On a military team, do they have each other's back? On a business team, you as the CEO need to have your people's back. If they make a mistake, have their back. If they make it multiple times, obviously that's a different type of thing. You got to put through training or something. But the level of compassion that you bring to the table is going to be mirrored and matched by the executives in your organization. None of your team will be more compassionate than you allow them to be, or that you train them to be, or that you build them to be. So make certain that is a big part of it. Final couple of points, and then I'll take questions. Flip the tables every now. Flip the tables. Don't be the CEO. Flip the tables. Don't be the HR manager. Be in that person's space. Sit in their chair. See what they see. Do what they do, and start to understand and come from their perspective. One of the greatest things I ever did with one of the CEOs that I was coaching is I said, listen, what I want you to do in a big construction company, I said, what I want you to do is every day of the week on your way to work or on your way home, I want you to visit one of your job sites and chat with some of the people who work for you. Just visit one of your job sites. Chat with the people that work for you. 2 weeks in, his perspective on his whole world had changed. Why? He'd learned to be more compassionate. He'd learned about his team. He'd sat with different people. He actually, by 2 weeks in, he was bringing their food for their break. So they'd have a soda and a donut or something like that he would bring and sit with them and just talk about life and talk about football on the weekend and barbecues that they went to and just stuff. But, if you want high performance, you want high performers. You want high performers? That's called humans. Build great humans, they build a great business. When you build people, they build the great business for you. So I think that's important. Ishik, if you can just bring up any questions for me while I finish off with this one last statement. well, it's not really a statement, it's a quote, as you can all imagine. Maya Angelou was a little more, well, let's just say she's better with words than I am. If you make them feel great, they do great work. If you make them feel awful, how can they do great work? Be a great compassionate leader. Be out there in the market representing compassionate leaders. Please make sure you get that ebook to everybody on your team so that everybody on your team can understand what it means to be a compassionate leader. And if you want to chat with one of the Engage and Grow coaches, wherever you are in the world, please get with them. Please chat with them about what it means to be a compassionate leader, but also what it means to really, what it really means to be an engaged team. Because when you build engagement, you build growth. Our 6 layers of engagement and our process to build 6 layers of engagement is so phenomenally powerful. And I'd love you to learn more about it, whether you read the book or whether you get to it. Here's the ebook. Eshik, what great questions have I been asked so far that I can answer for as many people as I can?
For the time being, I couldn't see any questions if I didn't miss among the messages.
Well, let me go to the 2 questions. Let me pull them up here. There were 2 questions that were sent to us prior to the event. Okay, so how does the word love fit in with business and the love and compassion? Listen, I think the word love is really important. In fact, in this book here that I wrote, my 17th book called Pulling Profits Out of a Hat, one of the aspects that we talk about in that book is there's 5 core disciplines of companies that grow with exponential growth. And one of them is mission. And the word mission is really about the word love. Do your customers love buying from you? Do your clients, your members love buying from you? And the flip side to that is, do your employees love coming to work? Do they love the work they do? I know our Engage and Grow coaches love the work they do. They love their clients and their clients love them because they get to do something to help and change and grow the world and change the way businesses operate. So is the word love part of compassionate leadership? 100%. Our goal as a leader is to make sure our people love coming to work and our customers therefore love doing business with us. And it's pretty hard to get your customers to love doing business with you if your team members don't love coming to work type thing. So that to me is an important aspect of what I guess it's not just compassion. I guess it's everything within a business. When I did a podcast recently with the ex-communications director from Harley Davidson, and he talks about it, at what level do people tattoo your logo on themselves? And I'm not asking my team to go out and tattoo Engage and Grow on their shoulder or anything like that, although maybe that would be fun. Maybe we should have a day where we all do that. But what he talked about is how do you get your brand to such a stage where your people are so passionate about it, not just your employees, but your customers? How do we get to a point where they're so passionate about it that they want to tattoo it on their body? The other question I've got here, so because these came in when people registered, by the way. Oh, how does the Engage and Grow program teach compassionate leadership? Okay, so what the Engage and Grow program does, we have multiple programs, everything from diversity and inclusion to women in leadership, to engage the core engagement programs we run, to the Leader of Leaders programs. All of our programs are designed to have humans work with humans to create connectivity, to create and bring forth leadership, to bring forth the greatness in the organization. And as we go through the 6 layers of engagement, which I'll do that webinar in a few months' time. Next month is the diversity inclusion webinar, so make sure you're around for that one. But as we grow through the 6 layers of engagement, what ends up happening is that the level of performance grows massively because we've got the people in the organization moving in a similar direction, moving in the same direction, knowing where we're going, how we're getting there, and they're aligned with each other. When you have alignment and then you move through to engagement and then you move finally through the layer of growth, you'll see such amazing things. So yeah, invest some time with your Engage and Grow coach. Invest looking at the Red Belt program, how we can get everyone moving, or any of the other programs on our team. Take care. Thanks for being here with me today. Thanks for being such a great audience. And I hope you build some more compassion into your leadership today.